Hey everyone, welcome back. Glad to have you here today. I've got a fresh story to share, and trust me, this one hits close to home. So let's dive in. My name's Ethan, and for the longest time, I believed my marriage was solid. Not perfect, no marriage is, but stable enough that I never thought twice about it. Vanessa and I had been together for years. Like any couple, we had our share of rough patches, but I always assumed we were working through them. That's what marriage is, right? You face things together. At least, that's what I believed. But looking back now, it's obvious. I was the only one holding on. Vanessa? She had already checked out. It didn't happen overnight. It was subtle at first, small things I barely noticed. The thoughtful gestures disappeared. The little routines we used to have. Gone. Now, I get it. Life gets stressful, people go through phases, moods shift. I'm not naive. But this wasn't just stress. This was different. People don't just wake up one morning and decide their spouse is an inconvenience. That kind of shift doesn't happen without a reason. And I was determined to figure out what that reason was. She started coming home later than usual. When I'd ask where she'd been, her answers were vague, almost dismissive. Just out. That's all she'd say, barely bothering to look up from her phone. If I pushed for more, out where, she'd roll her eyes or sigh like I was some annoying pest. That attitude, that was new. The Vanessa I married used to talk to me about everything, sometimes to the point of oversharing. But now, I was lucky to get more than a single word out of her. Then there was the phone. It was always with her, like an extension of her hand. If she was in the living room, it was in her palm. If she got up to grab water, the phone went with her. Even at night, I'd see the glow of the screen. I'd ask, "Who are you texting?" She'd shrug, "Just a friend." If I pressed further, "What friend?" she'd snap, "Why does it matter?" One night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I turned to her and asked, "Vanessa, what's going on? Why are you acting like this?" She didn't even pause, just let out an annoyed breath and muttered, "If I had something to say, I'd say it. Can I sleep now?" That hit hard. But the real gut punch came a few days later. A phone call. The guy on the other end didn't waste time. "Hey man, I don't want to stir up trouble, but you should check on Vanessa. I saw her with some guy, and, well, they weren't acting like just friends." I went numb. My first instinct was denial. No, not Vanessa, not my wife. There had to be another explanation. Something, anything. But then I thought back. The distance, the secrecy, the late nights, the phone glued to her hand, the attitude shift. And suddenly, the truth hit me like a freight train. This wasn't random. I wanted to believe my friend was wrong. I wanted to brush it off as a misunderstanding. But I couldn't. Because deep down, I already knew he wasn't. Something was going on. I felt it. But feeling it wasn't enough. I needed proof. And for that, I had to start with her phone. Now, Vanessa had always been careful with her phone. But lately, it had gone from normal caution to straight-up paranoia. She never left it unattended. Ever. If she stepped outside, it went with her. If she was cooking, it was right there. And when she used it, she'd angle the screen away from me, as if she was hiding state secrets. That alone was suspicious. But suspicion wasn't enough. I needed hard evidence. One night, my chance finally came. She left her phone on the couch and walked into the bathroom. My heart pounded as I reached for it. This was it. I swiped up. Locked. No problem. I tried the passcode. Wrong. I tried again. Nothing. My stomach clenched. We had never kept passwords from each other. Ever. This wasn't a coincidence. That's when I knew, whatever she was hiding, she didn't want me to find it. I set the phone back exactly where it was and just sat there, staring, processing. And for the first time, I realized my marriage wasn't just falling apart. It had already crumbled. I just hadn't seen it yet. If Vanessa was cheating, she couldn't cover every single track. No one is that careful forever. Sooner or later, people get comfortable. They slip up. And when they do, that's when they get caught. If I couldn't get into her phone, I had to find another way. I needed proof, something undeniable, something I could see with my own eyes. A few days later, the opportunity landed right in my lap. Vanessa casually mentioned she was stepping out to grab something real quick. No details, no explanation, just vague enough to set off every alarm in my head. I'd heard that excuse before, so I decided to follow her. I waited a few minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys and headed out. I kept a good distance, careful not to get too close. She weaved through a few streets before pulling up in front of a house I didn't recognize. She parked, got out, and walked straight to the door. No hesitation, no second thoughts. She knocked like she'd done it 100 times before. Then the door swung open, and there he was, some guy I'd never seen before. My gut twisted, but my hand was already in my pocket, pulling out my phone. The guy wasn't surprised to see her. He grinned, stepped aside, and just like that, she walked into another man's house like she belonged there. The door shut behind them. I stared at the screen of my phone, flipping through the photos I had just taken. I didn't need to go inside. I didn't need to make a scene. The truth was right in front of me. So, I just sat there, watching, processing, accepting. And then, without another word, I started my car and drove home. Hours later, Vanessa walked through the front door like nothing had happened. Same tired smile, same casual attitude. That was the part that hit me the hardest. I had seen it. I had the proof. And here she was, acting like our life was completely normal. Enough was enough. I called her into the living room. Sit down, I said. She sighed loudly, rolling her eyes as if I had interrupted something important. But she sat, arms crossed, staring at me like she had better things to do. I took a deep breath, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, I want you to end whatever this is, or we're done. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just laid it out, plain and simple. She frowned, shaking her head. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, her voice completely flat. There's nothing going on. I didn't say a word, just reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and turned the screen toward her. There they were, clear, undeniable photos. Her, him, the house, the door shutting behind them. For just a second, her face changed. A flicker of shock, of guilt. She had been caught. And then, just as quickly, her expression hardened. The guilt disappeared, replaced by something else. Anger. You followed me? She snapped, her voice rising. Are you serious? That's insane, Ethan. You don't trust me, so now you're stalking me? That's sick. Something inside me went cold. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't even surprised. She wasn't trying to explain herself. She wasn't trying to fix this. She was trying to flip it on me, turn herself into the victim, and paint me as the bad guy for catching her. I exhaled slowly and nodded to myself. Got it, I said, standing up. I didn't argue. There was no point. She had already made her choice. The next week passed in silence. We still lived under the same roof, but we weren't really there together. No small talk. No fake smiles. Just two people moving through the same space, waiting for the inevitable. She didn't try to defend herself. She didn't try to make things right. And I already knew she wasn't going to stop seeing him. I wasn't about to beg her for loyalty. That wasn't love. That was desperation. And I wasn't desperate. So, while she carried on pretending nothing had changed, I made a quiet trip to my lawyer's office and started the process. If she wanted him, she could have him. But I wasn't going to let her drag me down with her. Then, one morning, as I was getting ready for work, something unexpected happened. I was halfway through buttoning my shirt when Vanessa walked in. And for the first time in days, she looked like she had something to say. Her voice was even, almost too casual. I'm making you dinner tonight. I froze for just a second, my fingers hovering over the last button of my shirt. It took me a moment to process what she had just said. Vanessa hadn't cooked for me in months. Not since all of this started. Lately, she barely acknowledged my existence unless it was to be short, cold, or dismissive. And now, out of the blue, she wanted to make dinner? I turned to look at her. She was near the dresser, scrolling through her phone like this was the most normal thing in the world. And that was exactly why it wasn't. I didn't answer right away. I wanted to see if she'd follow up, maybe explain herself, give me some kind of reasoning for this sudden shift. But she didn't. She just kept scrolling, like this was nothing at all. All right, I finally said, keeping my tone neutral. If this was some kind of game, I wasn't going to be the first to show my hand. As I left for work, my mind wouldn't let it go. Was this an attempt to smooth things over? Maybe she felt guilty and was trying to throw me a bone. Or was she setting the stage for something else, a confession, an excuse, a final act of control before pulling the rug out from under me? Whatever it was, I wasn't going to sit around waiting to find out. What Vanessa didn't know was that I had already taken steps to free myself from this marriage. The divorce papers were ready, sitting neatly in a folder, waiting for the right moment. And more than that, I had something she wouldn't see coming. While she had been sneaking around with her little secret, I had been getting closer to someone too. Her best friend. At first, it was just conversations, two people venting about the same problem. Vanessa's selfishness. Her lies. Her blatant disregard for anyone but herself. But over time, it became something more. She saw the woman Vanessa had become. She had no illusions about who she really was. So if tonight's dinner was another manipulation, if she still thought she could play me for a fool, I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't even get angry. I would simply end this marriage on my terms. I came home that evening with a feeling I couldn't quite name. Vanessa was in the kitchen, and the smell of a home-cooked meal filled the air, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Months ago, I might have felt hopeful, maybe even relieved, thinking she was trying to fix things. But I knew better now. Whatever this was, it wasn't a peace offering. I sat at the table, watching her move with practiced ease, setting the plates, pouring the wine, smiling like nothing was wrong. We ate mostly in silence. She didn't ask about my day. I didn't ask about hers. The only sounds were the clinking of silverware, the occasional sip of wine, and the thick tension sitting between us like an unwelcome guest. Halfway through the meal, I put my fork down and looked at her. She was too composed, too calm, a woman who had already made up her mind. I leaned back slightly. So, have you ended your affair? She didn't even blink. Instead, a slow smirk curled at the corner of her lips, and she leaned back in her chair, like she had been waiting for this moment. And then, with zero hesitation, she said it. I'm leaving you. I exhaled slowly, but not in pain. If she had said those words months ago, they might have broken me. I might have begged her to reconsider, pleaded for another chance. But now? Now, they felt like the final chapter of a book I should have closed a long time ago. I smiled. A genuine, unbothered smile. Then, without a word, I got up, walked into the bedroom, and came back with a stack of neatly arranged papers. I placed them on the table in front of her and slid them across. Perfect, I said, my voice steady, calm. I already prepared the paperwork. Signed them. For the first time that evening, her confidence wavered. She wasn't expecting this. Her eyes flickered from the papers to me, searching for some kind of reaction she could use, some emotion she could twist to her advantage. But there was nothing. Just quiet. Just certainty. And then ding-dong. Her head snapped toward the door. She wasn't expecting anyone. I, on the other hand, had been waiting for this moment all night. Pushing my chair back, I took my time walking to the door, savoring every second. Then, I pulled it open. And there she was. Standing in the doorway, effortlessly beautiful, was Vanessa's best friend. The one person Vanessa had trusted with all her secrets. The woman standing at my door, the one Vanessa had trusted with all her secrets, was the same woman I had been getting closer to ever since I realized my marriage was already dead. I stepped aside, motioning toward her. Meet my new girlfriend. The look on Vanessa's face was priceless. It wasn't just shock, it was betrayal, disbelief, maybe even a flicker of regret. Because for all her scheming, all her manipulation, she had forgotten the most important rule. When you play games, you better be ready to lose. And Vanessa? She lost. I won't lie, she did not take it well. The moment she realized I had beaten her to it, something in her snapped. It was like watching a mask fall away, revealing the person she had been all along. She went from stunned silence to full-blown hysteria in seconds, her voice rising as she hurled every insult she could think of, asking if I had lost my mind, calling me pathetic, trying to claw back control with whatever venom she had left. But I didn't argue. I didn't need to. My job was done. The papers were on the table, and she had a decision to make: sign them, or let the court handle the rest. At first, she acted like she was above it all, pretended she was fine with the divorce, that she just wanted to move on. But I knew Vanessa. I knew how she operated. And sure enough, the moment she realized she had truly lost, the moment reality settled in, she became the woman I always knew she could be when things didn't go her way: spiteful, vindictive, ready to burn everything to the ground just to take me down with her. It wasn't about the marriage anymore. It was about revenge. And she did everything in her power to make me suffer. She took me to court, spinning a carefully crafted sob story, painting herself as the victim, twisting every detail of our marriage to fit the narrative she needed. She told them I had been controlling, manipulative, even abusive. She claimed I had isolated her from her friends, made her feel worthless, emotionally tormented her. She even threw in outright lies, things that had never happened, just to make me look like the villain. And the worst part? Some people believed her. That's the thing about lies. If someone tells them with enough confidence, they start sounding like the truth. But I wasn't about to let her rewrite history. When my turn came, I let the evidence speak for itself. I had photos, her sneaking into her lover's house. I had text messages, conversations that made it painfully clear this wasn't just an innocent friendship. And then there was the financial proof, bank statements showing exactly where our money had been going. Dinners, hotel stays, little gifts, every cent she had funneled into her affair, documented in black and white. My lawyer didn't miss a single detail. But the real hit? The emotional toll. For months, I had lived in that marriage questioning my own reality, second-guessing myself, wondering if I was the problem. I had been lied to, gaslight, made to feel like I was losing my mind. And the court listened. When the final ruling came, I saw it in her eyes. The moment she realized she had lost for good. The assets were split fairly, but thanks to my airtight case, I kept most of what I had worked for. She didn't get to walk away with everything like she had planned. She thought she could ruin me. But in the end, all she did was expose herself. And as I walked out of that courtroom, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. You'd think that after everything, I'd feel satisfied. That I'd feel whole. But the truth is, no one walks away from something like this without scars. I told myself I had moved on. I started seeing Vanessa's best friend, the woman who had been there through the fallout, who had seen firsthand how Vanessa had treated me. Unlike my ex-wife, she actually seemed to value me. But deep down, I couldn't shake it. That feeling. That no matter who I was with, no matter how good things seemed, a part of me would always be waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because when you've been betrayed like that, you don't come out the same. Trust isn't just given, it's earned. And once it's broken, it never quite fits back together the same way again. Could I ever trust someone enough to get married again? Right now, I don't think so. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't know if I'll ever look at love the same way. It's like touching a hot stove as a kid. Once you get burned, you flinch every time your hand gets near the heat. And me? I got burned badly. But in the end, I realized something important. Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who betray us the hardest. And when they do, the best revenge isn't anger. It isn't getting even. It isn't wasting your energy hating them. No. The best revenge is moving on. Living well. Becoming someone they can never have again. And making sure they regret losing you. Every single day. And believe me, Vanessa regretted it. And that's enough for me. So that's my story, guys. A wild one. I know. But that's life, right? You think you know someone. You build a life with them. And then one day, they throw it all away like it never mattered. But here's the thing. I didn't let it destroy me. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, don't let it destroy you either. Now, I want to hear from you. Did I handle this the right way? Should I have done something differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And remember, if something feels off in your relationship, it probably is. Don't ignore the signs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.